Hi folks, I'll be showing you how to paint this reindeer and get this knit sweater effect in this video sponsored by Hero Forge. Alright, so I started off by priming this mini. This is the premium plastic miniature, and I'm going to start with the skin fur on this reindeer with Steel Legion Drab, just kind of getting it all in on the face and the legs. The hands I decided to do as gloves. I'm just using a standard brush here, and because I have the paint on a wet palette, I haven't really watered it down, just because I found the consistency didn't need to get watered down. So I'm also going to do the legs in that color, and now that that's done and waited for it to dry, I'm going to dry brush in with Karak Stone. I'm using a small makeup brush here to do the dry brushing effect. And I really especially like dry brushing fur. I think that gives it a really good effect. I sometimes allow it to be a little bit streakier than I would if I was trying to do flesh. But I also will use dry brushing for flesh. I use dry brushing a lot. It's a nice kind of quick way of doing, getting some layers in. Now that I've let that dry, I'm going and painting in the eyes with Mournfang Brown. And just using a very fine brush here, kind of very carefully going in and getting the eyes. And usually I'll go back in and kind of paint the eyelids, but I was able to get these eyes without having to do that. So now that I've finished the eyes, we're moving on to adding some shade to the fur with Agrax Earthshade to kind of bring out those deeper brown colors. I originally thought about doing this reindeer in kind of a much darker color, but then I was looking at it and it just didn't look right. So I went and looked at pictures of reindeers and realized that reindeers actually tend to have a lighter colored fur than I necessarily think of. I think I was thinking more of like a deer, a regular deer, or a moose that's in a much more temperate climate, whereas, you know, reindeer wants to blend in a little bit more with the snow. So I did go ahead and I painted the hair with Karak Stone, and then used the shade, Agrax Earthshade, on that. And now I'm going back in with Pallid Witch Flesh and doing very light dry brush on the legs and on the face, and then also do dry brush on the hair, just to bring a little bit more dimension to it. I find building up those multiple layers really does help with fur look realistic. And because I wanted the hair to stand out a little bit more from the body, but still feel like that same color, I'm going in just with a fine brush and Pallid Witch Flesh to essentially like do the highlights in the hair. And I find that how much you blend your paints together, or kind of have a smooth transition or not smooth transition, does help set out different areas of the miniature. So now I decided to do the pants in this Waaagh flesh to give it this nice really green color, but still a little bit muted. I didn't want to go like full super bright green. I definitely, as you could see in the picture earlier, chose kind of some fun Christmassy-esque colors. This is very much a like would be a fun holiday one-shot character or NPC to include in your game. And I also did the gloves in that green color. Now I'm going to go in and add some highlights with, I mixed Waaagh flesh and Nurgling green 1-to-1, and just with a highlighting brush, I'm coming in and getting all of the places that the light would really be hitting it to bring out a little bit more dimension to the gloves and to the pants. So I'm focusing on the tops of the hands, and then on the pants I focused on like the pockets and the tops of the legs, the trim, all of that stuff to just help bring out the different dimensions of this sculpt. I did like the kind of cargo pants that I put on this. He has a little bit more of a modern feel than necessarily like a high fantasy feel to this miniature. And to bring it all together, I'm going in with Athonian Camoshade, just to bring out the crevices and stuff like that. let that settle into the cracks, as well as it kind of toned down the Nurgling green in there to blend it back down a little bit more with the Waaagh flesh. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Hero Forge for sponsoring today's video. Hero Forge has hundreds and hundreds of different options for your character, different fantasy races, as well as tons of accessories. They recently added in some really cool neck clothing items, as well as all through December they have been doing their adventure calendar, an advent calendar of various items getting added. So there are so many options to choose from. You can really find kind of the perfect miniature. Hero Forge Colors tool is also very helpful. You can have your mini printed in 3D color, or you can use it like I'm using it right here to kind of figure out what colors I want to use on the mini. I can try it all out before I ever actually put any paint on the miniature, so you can make your perfect custom miniature today. So head on over to Hero Forge to build your mini. And we're back to our painting. So I'm going to show you how I did this sweater effect. First, I based in with Mephiston Red. I really wanted that kind of bright red, festive looking sweater for this mini. So I just kind of got a real nice, even base coat all in, just using a pretty decent sized brush here. And I did actually, after filming, switch to a smaller brush to get in some of the details. And I painted the base in Fenrisian gray that I'll go over with some white to get the snow effect. But now I'm going back in with Agrax Earthshade to tone down the red just a little. And this also helped, bring out the dimension of it. And using that Agrax Earthshade, it also ties it a little bit more in with the color of the skin tone of this mini, the fur. Not skin, fur. It's a reindeer. They have fur. So yeah, I'm just painting this all over. I'm honestly using an inexpensive watercolor brush. I find that holds shades really well. And now on to the sweater part. So you can see I've actually started this a little bit to set myself up. But the way I'm doing this is I'm painting these little V's in a straight line down. If you look at sweaters, they do have these little V's to them. So to get that effect, I'm just going through and I'm painting a diagonal line going one way, a whole row of those lines, and then I'm going back in and painting a diagonal line facing the other way to form those V's. And the reason that I'm doing this in rows is that kind of helps those V's line up really well. And it also allows me to kind of follow the movement of the fabric. That's something, if you're adding any kind of design to fabric, pay attention to how it folds and moves. So this line is actually ever so slightly curved because there is a slight twist to his body. So I wanted to keep that kind of movement to the mini and not make it feel disjointed. If I had done just a straight line, it would have looked a little off when you add all of the rest of the lines together. And especially on the arms, I kind of followed as the arm bent, I followed that bend and adjusted where the V's went. But I'm just going to, in rows, go all the way around the chest, and then I started with the arms. I started at the top because I figured if it gets a little off on the bottom, you're not going to see it. And I also started with the back just because that was the biggest space to kind of establish this, and then I could wrap it around the front and finish under one of the arms. Again, kind of choosing a spot that might be a little bit more hidden for the whole pattern to kind of finish out and come together, so if that last line was a little stretched or squished, you wouldn't notice. So there it is all painted in, and I let that dry. I think it gave it a really nice, fun effect, adding a little bit of texture and dimension to that sweater there. And now I'm going in and painting the scarf in this bright Averland sunset. bringing these nice, fun, bright, vibrant colors. And I actually got the idea for this scarf from playing around with your Forge Colors tool. They had this really cool looking yellow that had kind of orange undertones to it. So to get those undertones, I decided to go in with Fuegan Orange and paint that on. I did this fairly heavy and actually went in with a second coat in a few spots to really bring in those orange tones. And I think that also having that orange color helped tie it into the warmth, the red of the sweater, so it felt more cohesive and less disjointed. That the just plain Averland sunset was a little too bright, too yellow compared to the red. And once it was dry, I went in with Averland Sunset to bring the highlights kind of back up. Now I did go in with Skeleton Horde in Citadel Contrast to do the hooves as well as the antlers, and I painted dead white dry brushing over top of that Fenrisian gray to get that snow effect. And then of course I also painted the little penguin buddy that he had next to it, just using black, white, and gray. Oh, and a little bit of the Averland Sunset for the beak. So there is the finished miniature. I'm very happy with how this guy turned out, especially the kind of sweater look on it. It took me a very long time, but was definitely worth it. So hopefully this helps you if you want to add some more textures, add a sweater to your miniature, gives you an idea of how to do that. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and I'd love to hear where you would use this mini in a festive one-shot, or would you find this as a fun miniature to play in a campaign? Let me know in the comments. Thank you again to Hero Forge for sponsoring this video. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure that you're subscribed, and you can follow us over on our social media to see more pictures of the minis we paint and find out what else we're up to. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! Okay, thanks. Happy holidays!